In this lesson, we will learn how to merge a schedule with a cost estimate, ready for an analysis. In Acumen Risk, we can develop schedule risk and cost risk models independently of each other. However, Acumen Risk also allows us to merge schedule and cost models. So, by eliminating the need to cost or resource load our schedule, we can run a completely merged cost-schedule risk analysis. So the process for integrating our cost and schedule models in Acumen Risk is: develop the schedule risk model and run a risk analysis. Then, develop the cost risk model and run a risk analysis. Add the initial cost analysis results to the risk exposure comparison. Apply schedule impact by clicking the Activity Schedule Overlay icon in the Activities pane and selecting the relevant activities from the schedule model. We can apply schedule impact to specific cost elements or the entire cost estimate. For example, activity, work package, WBS element, etc. Then rerun the cost risk analysis with the cost schedule integration turned on in the risk analysis options. Add the integrated cost and schedule results to the risk exposure comparison to view the additional impact of schedule risk exposure to the cost risk estimate. Now, let's look at a typical example of schedule impact on our cost risk model. Consider an activity in a cost estimate with a cost-risk distribution of minimum 90%, most likely 100%, and maximum 125%. So, for a most likely cost of 100,000, our 3-point cost estimate would be minimum 90,000, most likely 100,000, and maximum 125,000. So, the cost uncertainty would range from 90,000 to 125,000. Now, we want to merge it with an activity in a schedule, with a schedule risk distribution of minimum 95%, most likely 100%, deterministic, and maximum 160%. We'll make our deterministic duration equal to 200 days, so our 3-point schedule estimate would be minimum 190 days, P0, most likely 200 days, and maximum 320 days, P100. Now, to calculate the schedule impact on our cost risk model, we will need to merge our models to obtain a blended cost schedule model. So we need to create factors for minimum and maximum ranges from our schedule risk distribution data. These factors can then be multiplied by the minimum and maximum ranges in our cost distribution. Let's calculate our schedule risk factors. Firstly, the minimum or P0 factor. This would be 190 divided by 200, which is the deterministic, equals 95%. Then the most likely. This would be the same as the deterministic value, so it'll be equal to 1. Then the maximum or P100 factor will be 320 divided by 200, deterministic, equals 160%. So now we have our equivalent schedule risk factors. So our blended cost schedule risk distribution will be minimum equals 90,000 times 95% equals $85.5 thousand. Most likely equals $100,000. And maximum equals 125 times 160% equals $200,000. Let's look at an example for integrating our cost and schedule risk models. Click the Acumen icon in the top left and select My Cost Workbook from recent workbooks. My Cost Workbook will open in the S1 Projects tab. Currently, the workbook contains our initial plan, My Risk Schedule, and Cost Risk Sheet. We want to integrate the My Risk Schedule with Cost Risk Sheet. So highlight My Risk in the left pane and click the S3 Risk tab. Firstly, we're going to run a risk analysis on My Risk schedule. Make sure that My Risk is selected in the Projects pane. Then click the button for Run Risk Analysis. Next, select the Cost Risk sheet in the left Projects pane. Then click the button for Run Risk Analysis. In the Activities pane, select the WBS element for Sub C. Then in the top menu, click the button for Add to Risk Comparison. Now, we are going to apply the scheduled impact by overlaying a selected schedule activity or element with a cost model activity element. For this example, we're going to select Sub C in the cost model. Then we're going to overlay the construction WBS from the schedule model and compare the impact on the risk exposure. So click the button for Right panel in the top menu and set it to None. Make sure that the WBS element for Sub C is selected. Then click the icon to overlay our schedule risk onto the cost risk. An overlay dialog window will open. For step 1, make sure that you select My Risk from the drop-down. Then for step 2, scroll until you reach the construction WBS element and select it. Then click OK to close the dialog window. You'll see that the overlay icons for all Sub-C activities have now been activated. In the field next to the overlay icon, if you hover your mouse over any of the populated fields, the overlay details will appear. In the drop-down for Run Risk Analysis, confirm that the Cost Schedule Integration option is selected. Next, click the button for Run Risk Analysis. Highlight the Sub-C WBS element in the Activities pane to view the cost risk uncertainty for Sub-C. Then click the button for Add to Risk Comparison in the top menu. Next, click the pull-down for Right panel and select Risk Exposure Comparison. You'll see two S-curves for Sub-C. In the graph area, select the 80% level. You'll see that the P80 cost impact for Sub-C due to construction was $0.62 billion. So, Acumen Risk provides a very powerful way of analyzing the combination of cost impact in a cost schedule risk analysis. In the next lesson, we will work through techniques for the analysis of our risk results. Click the Acumen icon in the top left and close the workbook. Select Yes to save the workbook. In this lesson, we will work through the techniques for the analysis of our risk results. Click the Acumen icon in the top left and select My Cost Workbook from recent workbooks. My Cost Workbook will open in the S1 Projects tab. Currently, the workbook contains our initial plan, My Risk Schedule, and Cost Risk Sheet. Now, many of the techniques for analysis were covered in detail in my course for Deltek Acumen Fuse. I will not be covering these topics in detail in this course. However, we should discuss how Acumen Fuse analysis can help us with advanced analysis of our risk results. Select the S1 Projects tab. We have buttons for Smart Gantt and Timeline View in the Activities group in the top menu. Firstly, the Smart Gantt view. Click the Smart Gantt button and a drop-down will show options for formatting the top and bottom Gantt bars. If you hover your mouse over the options for the top bar, another drop-down will open with further options. Hover over the option for dates and a third drop-down will open where you can select criteria for the Gantt bar dates. At the bottom of this drop-down, hover your mouse over the option for PX dates. Here, there is an option to display P dates on your Gantt chart. So these are the options for displaying dates in your Smart Gantt. Now, in the second drop-down, hover over Color. Again, in the drop-down there are various options for configuring the color of your risk inputs, such as duration and cost uncertainty, and risk outputs, such as criticality, duration contribution, and risk range factor. Now, if you go back and hover over the option for bottom bar, the identical configuration features will be available. The second option for analysis is the timeline view. In our timeline view, we can compare our different scenarios that we built during our risk analysis. For example, we could use the timeline view to display differences in risk exposure between scenarios. Now, select the S2 Diagnostics tab. In the ribbons view in the bottom pane, select the view for scenario comparison and click Fuse. Here you will see that we are able to compare different metrics in our scenarios. Next, in the ribbons view, select the view for risk inputs and click Fuse. You will see that you will be able to compare a wider range of risk input metrics from a perspective of risk and uncertainty. Now, in the ribbon views pane, select the option for risk exposure and click Fuse. This time you can compare the risk output metrics for your evaluation. Lastly, click the Forensics tab. Once again, you will be able to compare your different risk scenarios that were generated during the risk analysis. So all of these analysis techniques were covered in detail in my course in Acumen Fuse. For now, just close the workbook and do not save it. Now let's move on and look at risk sensitivity. Firstly, we are going to import an Acumen workbook that contains risk models for both cost and schedule data. In the sample files that were provided with your copy of Acumen, we are going to open a copy of Acumen Sample Workbook MSP.afw. This workbook will contain a schedule file generated in Microsoft Project. We don't need to worry about the source planning software package because we are only going to look at the sensitivity. Unfortunately, the Acumen Sample Workbook P6 is not as clear as I would like it to be. So navigate to Acumen Sample Workbook MSP and click Open. You'll note that the initial plan and cost risk sheet will be displayed in the Projects pane. Now click the S3 Risk tab. In the Projects pane on the left, highlight the initial plan. Then select the right panel and select Risk Sensitivity from the pull-down. A scatter chart will be displayed in the right pane. Minimize the Projects pane on the left so that we display more of the graph. The scatter chart will display quadrants that show where cost and finish dates are less than or greater than their deterministic value. The axes can be individually defined by clicking the Configure button in the lower right. By default, they are set for a cost versus finish date analysis. Across the bottom of the graph, there are checkboxes for deterministic value, deterministic quadrants, and joint confidence level, or JCL. Go ahead and deselect the deterministic value. You'll see that the deterministic marker is no longer displayed. Select it again. Now, this deterministic value is the combined value for cost and schedule. The individual deterministic value for cost will be on the y-axis in line with the marker, and the deterministic date will be in line with the marker on the x-axis. Next, deselect the option for deterministic quadrants, and you will see that the quadrants are no longer displayed. Select it again. Next, we have the checkbox for Joint Confidence Level, or JCL. It should currently be unchecked. Click the checkbox and make sure that the JCL is set at 50%. So what does this tell us? A joint schedule and cost analysis is an analysis where the iteration points, or hits, are displayed where both the schedule and cost criteria are met. It provides insight into the probability of meeting both cost and schedule commitments. So our shaded area for the 50% JCL includes more than half of the iterations. Set the JCL to 80% and you will see that most of the iterations are included in the shaded area. Now click the button for Configure. A dialog window will open where we can customize our X and Y axes. Look at the X-axis first. Click the drop-down for the X-axis activity. In the drop-down, you can select any WBS or activity level. Click the X-axis value drop-down and you'll note that you can set the X-axis to duration, start, finish or float. The Y-axis can be configured in a similar manner. To view the scatter chart, click the Analyze button and the graph will be displayed for the current settings. Next, we're going to look at critical schedule drivers. Now, when you run a risk analysis and include uncertainties and risk events, each simulation may have a different critical path. Activities that are critical in your deterministic schedule may not be the same as those identified in the statistical model. So, instead of looking at the critical path at activity level, you can run simulations for the entire project. Each time a simulation is run, Acumen Risk takes note of the critical path for that simulation. Then, as you run more and more simulations, you'll find that some of the paths get repeated. It is those most common critical paths that you would want to see. Okay, now click the right panel in the top menu and select Critical Schedule Drivers from the drop-down. In the right pane, you'll see a tornado chart where you can view critical paths and near critical paths as a result of risk. The percentage that is displayed to the right of each bar is how often, as a percentage, the path is most critical. So for the initial plan, we will see two critical paths, one for 99.8% and the other for 0.2%. Therefore, if you run 1000 iterations and the path 1 bar displays a percentage of 99.8, it means that path 1 was the critical path in 998 of the 1000 iterations. Now hover your mouse over the tornado bar for path 1. A pop-up will appear that shows all of the activities that make up that path. You'll see that 23 activities make up that path. Now hover your mouse over the tornado bar for path 2 and you'll note that 19 activities make up its path. Now just click on any of the bars and a different pop-up will be displayed. Here you will be able to create a Smart Gantt filter that will be available when you view Smart Gantt charts in S1 projects. You don't need to save the workbook, so simply close it and click No. In the next lesson, we will look at options for printing and publishing our risk results. In this lesson, we will look at options for printing and publishing our risk results. Select the Acumen icon in the top left and open My Risk Workbook from recent workbooks. Once the workbook is opened, click the S3 Risk tab. In the left-hand projects pane, highlight My Risk. Then minimize the left-hand projects pane. Now, in the S3 Risk tab in Acumen Risk, you will see that there's an Import or Publish group in the top menu. Within this group, we have 4 buttons: Print Preview, Microsoft Excel, Copy to Clipboard, and Publish. Click the button for left panel and make sure that Activities is selected. Then click the right panel drop-down and select None. Then click the button for Print Preview. A drop-down will appear for Print Preview with options for Activities, Uncertainty Inputs, Risk Exposure Comparison, Risk Drivers, Risk Driver Comparison, Scatter Chart, and Critical Schedule Drivers. Now, our default current display is the Activities view, so only the Activities Print Preview will be available. All of the other options will be grayed out. The availability of these options is determined by your selection in the right panel drop-down. So click the button for right panel and from the drop-down select Risk Exposure. Click the Print Preview and note that risk exposure is now available for preview. Click this option to bring up the preview page. At the top of the preview page, you'll see that we have options to search, open or save, print, page setup, scale, export in many different formats, and send via email. Click the X to close this page. Now, if we had selected risk registers in the left panel pull-down, then we would have been able to view and print the risk register. Now make sure that Activities has been selected from the left panel pull-down. Leave the right panel set to None. Then click the Microsoft Excel button to open the pull-down. You will see that you can import or export activity uncertainty from or to Microsoft Excel. So you'll be able to import or export our minimum, most likely or maximum uncertainty values as absolute values or percentage values from or to Excel. You'll note that the risk register options are grayed out. Now select Risk Register from the left panel pull-down. It doesn't matter what option the right panel is set to. Then click the Microsoft Excel button. This time you'll note that only the risk register options are available. Here you can export or import your risk register to or from Excel. Next we have Copy to Clipboard. With the current display settings, it'll be grayed out. For this feature, we will need a chart or graphic to be displayed. Firstly, click the button for left panel and select Activities from the pull-down. Then click the right panel pull-down and select Uncertainty Inputs. Then select the WBS element at the highest level in the Activities pane. Then click the button for Copy to Clipboard. In the drop-down, you'll see that only Uncertainty Inputs is available. Again, all of the options in the Copy to Clipboard drop-down are dependent on our selections for the left and right panel drop-downs. Some of the selections in the Copy to Clipboard have additional options where you can copy a chart to the clipboard or copy the chart data table to the clipboard. In the drop-down, there is an option that allows you to print a waterfall chart. This waterfall chart option will print a waterfall chart from a mitigation analysis. So, to enable this option, we need to be in the risk register view. So click the left panel button pull-down and select the option from the risk register. Now, highlight Risk 1 and click the button for Mitigation Analysis. Your mitigation steps will appear in the right-hand pane. Now click the button for Copy to Clipboard. From the pull-down, Waterfall Chart is the only available option. Select this option and the waterfall chart will be copied to the clipboard. It can then be pasted into, say, Microsoft Excel, Word, or PowerPoint. Lastly, we have the Publish button. Click the button and you'll see a drop-down with two options: Executive Briefing and Selection Sets. If you select Executive Briefing, you can print to a Microsoft Word or a PDF file. When you select either of these options, a dialog window will open where you can add activities or a WBS element. Click the Add button. Another window will open where you can select your activities or group header. In the left pane, scroll to the Procurement WBS element, then click the arrow to move it into the right pane for selected activities. All of the procurement activities will move over to the right. Then click OK to close the window. Now you can add, edit, or delete your selection sets. When you have finished adding or editing your selection sets, you can click Close. Then a secondary dialog window will open where you can select your selection set, p-value, tornado number of levels, driver analysis mode, and group report by. Once you've made your selections, click OK to close the dialog window. Now, a browser window will open where you can save your executive briefing to a specified directory. Just click Cancel so we don't save this file. Lastly, click the Publishing pull-down and select Selection Sets. Here, you can add, edit, or delete selection sets for use in your executive briefings. you can click Close. You don't need to save your workbook, so simply close it and click No. We have now completed Deltek Acumen Risk step by step. I hope you enjoyed the course and thank you for taking part. I would welcome comments about the course and will always continue to make improvements if necessary. You may wish to take part in my other courses for Deltek Acumen Fuse, Deltek Acumen 360, Primavera Risk Analysis, Primavera P6 for beginners, and Primavera P6 for intermediate. Thank you again.